All right, let's just jump right into this. Today, we're going to unpack a really fascinating talk by author and speaker Myron Golden. He takes on a pretty provocative question about how faith and finance mix, and he offers a framework that really challenges a lot of the usual ways of thinking.
So Golden doesn't beat around the bush. He kicks things off with this super direct question. He says that in all his years of experience, inside the church, the number one thing people ask for prayer for is financial trouble. But why is that? What's really going on here?
And to really drive this point home, he tells this powerful story. Picture this, a church service, about 40 people there. They take up a special offering for a family that had just lost everything. Their entire house burned down. And the total amount they collected? $135. Now, for Golden, this isn't about shaming their hearts. He says it's a symptom of a much deeper financial problem that he sees.
So, to figure out the why, Golden goes straight to a parable from the Bible that he says almost everyone gets wrong: the story of the unjust steward. He believes the key to everything is hidden right here. Okay, so first things first, what even is a steward? It's simple, really. It's a manager. In this story, he's the guy in charge of his rich boss's money and accounts. He's not the owner, right? He's just managing the goods.
So here's how the story goes. The steward gets accused of squandering the money, and he's about to get fired. He kind of panics for a second, thinking, I'm not strong enough for hard labor, and I'm way too proud to beg. So what does he do? He comes up with this incredibly clever plan. He calls in all the people who owe his boss money and tells them to slash their own bills. He tells one guy to change his debt from 100 barrels of oil down to 50, and another from 100 bushels of wheat to 80. Why? So they'll owe him a favor and take him in after he loses his job. Now this is where Golden's whole argument pivots. See, most people read the line, "The Lord commended the unjust steward," and they think Jesus is actually praising the guy for being dishonest. But Golden points out a huge detail. In the original text, the word Lord has a lowercase l. That means it wasn't Jesus. It was the steward's human boss who praised him, and not for the dishonesty, but for being so shrewd, so clever, and making sure his own future was secure. That changes everything.
Okay, so that little detail leads us right into the next point. Because right after telling this story, Jesus gives his followers this really specific and honestly pretty confusing piece of advice.
He starts talking about something called the mammon of unrighteousness. And Golden is quick to explain, look, this isn't some demon or some evil entity. It's just an old term for worldly wealth. Money. He sees it as just a tool, totally neutral. And this is the actual instruction Jesus gives. He says, essentially, use your worldly wealth to build relationships, to make friends. Golden's take is that this is a command to be strategic. Use your resources to help people to build connections. By doing that, you're creating a network that can support you, not just here and now, but metaphorically speaking, in the long run. It's all about building social and spiritual capital. And here's the real kicker. Golden argues that Jesus calls money that which is least, like the smallest thing. So how you handle this little thing, this worldly wealth, is basically a test. And the question becomes, if you can't be trusted with something as relatively unimportant as money, who in their right mind would ever entrust you with what he calls true riches? Real spiritual responsibility and purpose.
So, how does this way of thinking actually play out? Well, this is where Golden starts to directly confront what he calls satanic interpretations of Scripture. These are ideas that he believes actively encourage this mindset of pious poverty. He hones in on three big beliefs that he argues are holding so many people back financially. You've probably heard them: the idea that being poor is somehow more holy, that money itself is the root of all evil, and that having wealth makes it almost impossible to get into heaven. He says these are all just flat-out wrong interpretations. And this table just lays out his counter-arguments perfectly. To the idea that poverty is piety, he points to a verse that says the blessing of the Lord actually brings wealth. And to the big one, money is the root of all evil, he makes a crucial distinction. The Scripture doesn't say that. It says the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. See the difference? The problem isn't the cash, it's the obsession with it. All right, so if money isn't evil and being poor isn't the goal, then what is the right perspective? This brings us to Golden's final, and maybe his most important point. He brings up the biblical concept of having two masters. The saying goes, you cannot serve both God and mammon or money. You got to pick one. One of them is going to be in charge.
And this right here is the whole key. When money is your master, it controls you, either because you're desperate from not having enough of it or because you're obsessed with getting more of it. But when money is your servant, everything changes. It becomes a powerful tool, a tool you can use to help people, build things, and fulfill a much bigger purpose. As Golden puts it, money makes a terrible master, but a wonderful servant. And this is it. This is the core thesis of his entire message. The real point isn't just to get rich, no. The true reward is who you become along the way, the character, the discipline, the wisdom you gain. And the financial wealth that might come from that, according to Myron Golden, that's just the bonus.
So to kind of wrap up Golden's whole perspective, he's arguing that we should see money as a neutral tool, not something to be afraid of. He says to diligently apply what he sees as biblical principles to your finances, to completely reject the idea that poverty equals holiness, and to focus on being a good steward, a good manager of resources, instead of just hoarding them for no reason.
And all of that brings us to the final question he leaves us with. It's a question that really gets to the heart of how we all think about our own finances. In your life, right now, is your money your master, or is it your servant?